I do think it could work as an adapted short film. I think short films are all the rage because... Alright, hello my fellow readers. Today I'm going to be talking about the books that I would like to see adapted. Now, a little bit of my background. I have an MFA in screenwriting and production, so I do feel like I can talk about this from a very realistic standpoint. You just see my dog. I think she's clearly annoyed that I'm sitting here talking, but yeah, I feel like I'm very qualified to talk on this from a production standpoint, and if I feel like I'm being unrealistic, I'll let you know. I'm also going to tell you where I think they would be, the best homes for them would be, I guess. So let's just get started because I do think we're going to be here a while if we don't. Okay, so the first book is kind of cheating just a tiny bit. This was in development out over at Ryan Murphy's production company a few years ago, but I have not heard anything else about it. But that is just by looking at him. This book follows Elliot, who is a screenwriter in Hollywood, which Hollywood loves nothing more than to see Hollywood in films. I'm not gonna lie. But Elliot is a screenwriter and he has cerebral palsy and is gay. And so we kind of go through this journey with him of like kind of accepting his disability, even though like on the surface he thinks he's had it all figured out and like it's not a problem, but you can tell deep down that he's really struggling with it. And to be honest, I think we just need a film like this. I definitely think it would be a film. I think it would definitely be more of a, I would say Sony, but I know Ryan Murphy's production company has the rights to it. But I feel like a Sony or like more of a mainstream, because I do think this needs to be seen by a lot of eyeballs. But I also don't think it would really fit in the indie space either. I'm going to read a quote from this book because I think it's really important and hopefully this sums up why I feel like it should be made. But it says, "To be disabled is to understand at a base level that your existence, your experiences do not matter. Your life isn't reflected in TV or movies." If that doesn't sum up why we need this, I don't know what else will. But in general, there is like a romantic subplot in this, so you have that in there. I also just think I just need to see this. I will tell you a story about it though. I commuted from Long Beach to LA for my MFA and I listened to this the first week that I was going up to school. I listened to it on audiobook while I was commuting, and when I heard that part, I knew exactly why I was there. And the whole time I wrote about chronic illness anyway. I wrote scripts in and around chronic illness. But I just remember hearing that line and going like, okay, I know exactly why I'm here and I know exactly what I need to do. And I think for that, it's like sentimental and also kind of nostalgic for me. But also, I just think it's such an important story and one that we just need to be talking about and see. Okay, next. This one's kind of a random one, and I don't actually think this could get made. It's not very realistic of me, but I do think it could work as an adapted short film. I think short films are all the rage because long form is just a little bit harder, to get made. And I feel like if someone wants to adapt this, it'd be great. That is Vanishing World. This is about basically a world in which men can get pregnant. And to be honest with you, kind of need to see that. But also, I think it's such an interesting story about community and raising kids as a community. And I think it talks about that, but also kind of talks about the like conversations about like femininity and being pregnant and all of that. I will say the last like 10 pages of this book, I could do without. But you know what? You could change that in an adaptation. Just saying. Okay, the next one, I would love to have seen this on like the CW, but it's not going to happen because that doesn't really exist anymore. And that is American Royals. This is if the US had a monarchy instead of the system of government that we have. And I think it's really important to see this, but also I think it's a really cool story. I do, however, think one of the characters does need to be queer, and I'm going to say it's going to be Samantha if I had to choose, which is the sister. I see this kind of on more of a streaming platform, maybe a Prime. I feel like they already have Red, White, and Red, Blue. So, throw this in there. They have Young Sherlock now. So, not that Young Sherlock's anything like this, but I'm just saying they have kind of more of the teen dramas. And I think this doesn't really fit in line with Netflix. And I will say this is also a series. So, I do think it's a TV show, and each season will be a different book. There's a total of 5 books. I think this is perfect. There's a lot of like lot of drama in this. There's a lot of like royals running away, kidnappings, love, all that kind of fun stuff that works in a teen drama. So I think this definitely would work. The next one is Meet the Newmans. I love this book. I think also Amazon Prime should have the rights to this. And the reason I say that is because they have already done Daisy Jones and the Six, and I feel like this is very similar, like structurally. And then they also did the I Love Lucy adaptation, like biopic with Nicole Kidman editing. Megan, put the poster here because I can't remember the name of it. But I think that they would do this justice. I think it would be a film. I think it's like, I mean, it is about a family who is on TV. It's in the 50s. There's an accident that happens at the beginning, and then kind of secrets start to unravel as we go through the book. And I think it would just make a really cool movie. It could also be a limited series, but I think structurally it would be best as a film. And I think honestly, Amazon over there, like Amazon Prime has a lot of historical like shows going on. So you know what? Let's just add to their list, okay? Like I think this would be incredible. The next one, I'm being a little bit like, I don't know. Like maybe because I love this book and it was the first 5 star I had this year, but it's Blue Sisters by Coco Malores. I think this would be a great A24 adaptation. Hey, A24, come hire me because I can give you a lot of advice. But also the reason I say that is one, I think A24 has a lot of kind of those indie gritty kind of feeling movies, and this is definitely a gritty type of novel. Like if you've read it, you know what I'm talking about. I do also think they had the Kristen Stewart boxing one. I know that one is like a little like horror kind of vibes, but whatever that's called, Megan, put it here. I and there is a boxing element to this book, but I think in general it deals with grief. It deals with there's a little bit of a queer plot. It deals with chronic illness. It deals with addiction. Like I think there's a lot of good things about this book that would make it into a really good film. I mean, you could also, I guess, make it into a limited series. But and A24 is in the TV market now, so maybe, but I think this would work better as a film. Structurally, I think it would just keep it moving, and I think if you were to do kind of a television show, it would get kind of old and get kind of boring. But that's just my take on it, but definitely I want to see this adapted. For this had the best endometriosis representation that I've ever seen in a book, because Conversation with Friends, that we could talk about where adaptations didn't do well. I have a list of those, and Conversation with Friends is on that list. Daisy Jones is hot take kind of on that list as well, but not for the reasons that anyone thinks. I think Daisy Jones was done really well, but there is one plot point that I really have a bone to pick with the creators of Daisy Jones and the Six, because when it was adapted, anyway, we can talk about that on a different video because I could go on a whole tangent about that. The next is Bird Hits Glass. I see this on the BBC as a limited series. I think the BBC has done a really good job at making sure that chronic illness is done accurately, minus Conversation with Friends. But again, that's a different conversation for a different day. But this follows Grace, who basically gets sick and never gets better, and it's her journey to get diagnosed. But there's also a relationship in there, which I think would have to change slightly whenever you were to adapt it. There's also family dynamics, sister dynamics in this. I do think that the reason I say I want it to be a limited series rather than a film is simply for the fact that a lot of people do not understand how long it actually takes to be diagnosed with a chronic illness. It is not like you just walk into a doctor and get diagnosed. And this does a really good job of breaking that down and really kind of going through the emotions that one deals with as they're kind of trying to get a diagnosis, and how long it actually takes, and the blood tests and the MRIs and the CT scans, like all of that kind of stuff. This does a really good job kind of compressing it into a book. But I do think we need to be shown this. I think post-COVID, we definitely need to have stories like this on our televisions, because they're really important, and I think that it's just the time for it. But I think definitely this is set in London, so I think definitely the BBC needs to get a hold of this. The next one is for my red, white, and royal blue fans. Since Prime is the one that has the rights to that, if Netflix wants to take this and they want something similar, I would suggest A Tale of Two Princes. This definitely is not like enemies like red, white, and royal blue, but it is about a prince, like a person that doesn't know they're a prince, and then there's a Prince of Canada, so we are kind of in like a alternate kind of world. But the Prince of Canada starts to help the new prince that doesn't know he's a prince, and there's a beautiful little love story. I think especially if Netflix, because they like missed the boat on red, white, and royal blue, they want to get their hands on this, get it, because get the rights to this, because I do think this would make a really fun type of film. I feel like it's also kind of giving like Hallmark, like The Secret Prince, and like, or the like doesn't know he's a prince and all of a sudden he finds out and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm in this new world. Like, just make that gay. Okay? Like, I think this would be fun. I think it just would be fun. I think it would be a fun time. But I think Netflix would definitely have a hold on this. And that's that. All right, the next one is The Feeling of Falling in Love. I feel like every time I want to talk about adaptations, I talk about this book for a lot of different reasons. Mason Deaver is one of my favorite authors, especially in the YA space, although that they now do like adult books. And if anyone at Avon Publishing is watching this, hello, my name is Megan. Please send me a new copy of the new book. Like, please, 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 I would love an arc of it. I love Mason Deaver. I have a story to tell about this, in case anyone's wondering. I remember reading I Wish You All the Best in line at Disneyland, in the Star Wars line, and I could not put this book down, and I just remember having to like have my mom pry it out of my hands when we got on the ride, because I did not want to stop reading it. I mean, first of all, that book is so heartbreaking at points, but also the film, beautiful, by the way. Like, that whole crew, that whole cast and crew, thank you. It's done beautifully. But back to this. This is giving me that film Unplanned that was on Hulu, like a Hulu original. Honestly, Hulu, you could do this. This is the queer version of that, although not really in the same way. There's a wedding. There's also a roommate that he hates. And there's sexuality conversations, gender conversations. There's also an ex involved in all of this. Again, it's kind of funny, but it's also kind of like heartwarming. I just think it's the time for it, and I think it's also just like a fun time, and I love a road trip movie. I mean, who doesn't? I mean, are they like feasible to make? They're expensive depending. I think this would work really well. That's just my bit on it. And lastly, it's for all my Larry Styleson fans out there. It is If This Gets Out. There are a few kind of like Larry Styleson like books out there, but this one is just like the most fun, I think. And it's like we have a boy band, and then there's also like one coming to terms with their sexuality. I just think it would be really fun to watch, like on like Netflix or something. Like, would that not be fun? I mean, also Amazon Prime, but I think Netflix would definitely have a field day with this. I feel like Netflix did something similar with like a straight couple at one point, but I think it's just one of those things where I feel like a lot of the millennial, like the mid-20s and the millennials would really get a kick out of seeing kind of something like Larry Styleson like on their screens, because we all kind of grew up in that era of like that whole saga. But I just think it would be fun. All right, that is it for all the books that I have that I would love to be adapted. I would love to know in the comments what other books you would want to be adapted, and also what books out of this list that you would really enjoy watching. Bye!